sign tobacco.
Yeah. Now, there's a hypnotic technique where we let's say if somebody was using the imagery of a cigarette and we were dialoguing with the cigarette at the end, we'd turn that cigarette into something else. So, you know, if someone came to me like that, I'd have that take that cigarette into something else.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah, you should try it.
Yeah, transform it.
Right, right. So instead of it becoming a stumbling block, it turns into a stepping stone. Any more you want to read?
I do have another one, and it's from a high school student, and her name is Katie. She has a letter to my sister. I wish you hadn't died when you were born. Now all I have are 2 brothers. Sometimes I think I like sisters better than brothers. My mother tells me if I had lived, I might not have been born, or we would have had 4 children in the family. If we had 4 children, I would probably have to share a room with you. Sometimes I would mind, but sometimes I wouldn't. My brothers say they are glad you did not live. My mother says your name would have been Jennifer, and we'd call you Jenny. You had blondish, brownish hair. You would be 19 or 20 by now. I have brown hair past my shoulders. It's too bad you died. I wish you would have lived. Love, Kate. And then there's a brief answer from Jenny to Katie. For one moment that I was alive, I saw our mother with a pale look on her face. The doctors and nurses just shook their heads. All of a sudden, everything went blank. It must be fun to be alive. That's all I can say for the minute that I was.
Oh, that's great. And do you ever work with children?
I do. I've worked with children as young as 3 years old, all the way up through college. And when you work with 3-year-olds, they tell you what to write, and you can write for them, and they get really excited when you put something on a flip chart for them.
Oh, that's great. And, well, are these children doing journaling in, like, preschool, kindergarten?
Preschool classes.
Oh, so you'll go to, like, a preschool class?
I'll go to a preschool, like they have preschool in some of the public schools, and I've worked with children like that. I've worked all the way up to senior citizens.
And how is it to work with senior citizens?
It's great. It's really, they're very young at heart. And the thing about senior citizens, they're not old people. They're really like young souls that just maybe they happen to grow older. But deep down inside, they're timeless, I'd say. I really enjoy working with them.
And how do you compare or contrast the young children with the older adults?
Oh, people are people. They're just at a different stage.
Yeah.
And children are yearning to learn, and older people are yearning to tell.
Yeah. Well, I also know that children have more vivid imaginations and fantasies.
I think so.
Yeah. Well.
Because it isn't trained out of them.
Now, Cynthia, you wrote a book, was it Night Ribbons?
I wrote a book, Night Ribbons, that's my first book of poetry. I've also written 2 others, Swimmer's Prayer, which is a book of poems about Chicago, and also Earth Elegance, poems about animals and nature.
Now, do you ever, is poems part of your journaling?
They are, because I use my journal as a creative journal, and I also tell students about how to make a Leonardo da Vinci journal, and that is to write a lot of your notes that you're going to be using for your future pieces, whether they be poems, sections of novels, character studies, and the like.
Reminds me of the book Bird by Bird, Annie Lamont. Did you ever read that?
I've read that book, yes.
Yeah.
And it has a lot of good hints about writing and rewriting, and a lot of people don't like to rewrite, but if you're writing journals, you don't have to rewrite, so you don't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
But you can if you want to turn that into something else.
Now, is journaling and a diary the same thing?
Well, if you look at the most basic form of diary writing, you look at the log or the ship's log, and it's a day-by-day account. It's really about what happened. It doesn't talk about emotions at all. But if you look at that mid-20th century Dear Diary phase, there's a little bit more responses, but it's still basically, you know, what did I do, where did I go, what did I eat, who did I meet? But the modern journal or the life transformation journal really addresses more about the how and the why, and instead of just the what if.
And do you think it was a result of what was going on culturally or politically in the world that people became more free to express more?
I think you said that exactly. I think as the 1960s evolved, and that's when the father of modern journaling, Ira Progoff, wrote his first books. Things had happened. Freud had a lot to do with it, but also the changing culture that transformed from the 50s through the 60s and on. We're more accepting of looking deeply within ourselves and asking a lot of questions.
And where do biographies fall in? Are they more towards journaling?
You mean autobiographies?
Autobiographies, yes.
People have, sometimes they call it creative nonfiction. People take liberties with their autobiographies. It could mean a lot of different things. Looking at your memoirs, looking at your autobiography, it has a lot to do with journal writing.
I just can't wait to read President Bush's.
Oh, I can wait. Thank you.
Thank you for saying that. Well said. Do you want to read one or two of your poems?
I can read one of my poems from Earth Elegance, which is the book about animals. And this actually is about, it has a little bit going on about Pirates of the Caribbean, let's say, but these are the original pirates, rats, that got on board and took over. Squeaks and chitter of rumor continue down here about ways that Jolly Rogered humans fear they're outnumbered. We arrived unencumbered, sailors on those Viking ships and Persian sloops. We thrived in ragtag groups and taught ourselves the pirates' own game. We're not to blame for trading tips on smuggling lunches, making hunches on each stowaway cavity, with a deeper respect than your Newton for the law of gravity. Whatever booty's dropped by the highfalutin seems to sink to our best level, so don't think it's the devil in your basements, underground parking lots, and inside your fancy yachts. You see that bridge? We're underneath and bore through brick and drywall with our teeth. We lose one eye, we've got thousands of others. Who needs a pirate's patch when you've got brothers who all vacation among the overripe and shop-worn and built a nation on cold pizza and stale popcorn?
Now, when you write a poem like that, is there a purpose and intent there, or you're just trying to be creative?
I think there's an intent. I love animals, even rats, and I just wanted to devote a whole book to it.
A whole book to rats?
To animals.
Oh,
no,
okay.
Not to rats. That's my next book. But I picked topics like Swimmer's Prayer, poems about Chicago. So I love Chicago. I love writing poetry. So I just have all kinds of different experiences, a lot of journal experiences that are really expressed in poems.
And what does the title Swimmer's Prayer mean?
It's from one of the poems that I wrote about being on the beach and just what happens when you're in Chicago. And
which beach by any chance?
It was actually Oak Street Beach, though I was always a denizen of Foster Avenue Beach.
Oh, sure. Sure.